So, are you DTFF?
Once again, here's Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your host, Jake Trowbridge and Dustin Lunt.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday. You have reached DTFF. We're back. We're here. We're doing it. We are in the throes of the offseason. We got training camp starting soon. Lots of fun stuff. Exciting things are happening. We got a great show for you this evening. We are talking undervalued Dynasty players. So that'll be a fun, I'm sure, fairly heated conversation at times. But before we get into any of that, I've got to say hello to my co-host, Jacob. Jake, how are you doing this evening?
Delightful. Thank you for asking. I'm ready to get heated, as you say. I don't know that I'm going to get very heated on this particular episode. I don't know. This is just kind of more playing favorites, I think, with our dynasty trade targets. But we'll see. Maybe the heat will rise if there's some extra spicy takes out there that are coming from your end. We'll just have to play it by ear. But how are you doing?
Yeah, obviously you haven't looked at the show sheet because there's a couple names that I threw out there that are going to be a little controversial just based on previous conversations we've had about these players. But I am doing terrific, thank you. And I'm doing even better now that Albert has joined the show. Hello, Albert. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Albie. Can I call you Albie? I've always wanted to call somebody Albie. I hope that you can be my first, Albert.
Why not?
Anyways.
I think you did, and it's done.
I did it.
Yeah,
it's already done. Yeah, it's already happened. So technically it is. We need to talk about what we're drinking. This is yours this time around, Dustin. What are we imbibing on tonight's episode?
Well, we have a very tasty beer. I'm already like halfway through the first one I pull out for the show. This is from local brewery, Central Waters, right here in Wisconsin. This is called After Slice. It is a Mexican style lager with limes. And it's delicious. It is really good. It's got a nice, I really like the lime flavor. This is what I would be shooting for if I was home brewing another lager. This flavor right here. This is terrific. I love it.
It's a simple concept, right? It's a great summer beer. It's that Corona with the lime already in it type of a vibe from it, which I love. I mean, that's a great crushable, as we often say, type of beer. So I'm sold on this one. I like it very much.
Oh, yes. Great success.
That's delightful can art for our YouTube viewers. That is just lovely can art. Yeah. Very simple, very nice. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You could sit and drink these all day long, sitting on the beach, after mowing the lawn, be nice, refreshing beer. Have not one bad thing to say about it.
Yeah, I might just do exactly that. We'll see. It's a long week. There's plenty of days left in it. I might take one just to do that, as you mentioned.
Okay. Well, we did that. You know what we haven't done for a while, and we get to do it again. And it makes me so freaking excited. It's our drunk trade of the week.
Drunk, hammered drunk.
Drunk trade of the week.
Boy, it feels like an eternity since we've heard that particular drop. I am very excited to welcome back the drunk trade of the week, which we'll be having throughout the rest of this offseason here. This one comes from, obviously, where else? Reddit user Chi-Town Kid 81 says, last August, I pulled off a trade at a wedding. A wonderful place to celebrate the marriage of a player and a team, I would say. Half the league was at this wedding. This person traded away Deebo Samuel, Elijah Moore, and a 205 rookie pick for the 106 and a third. Woke up the next morning feeling I greatly overpaid, turned both picks into CJ Stroud and Will Levis. This is a 10-team super flex PPR tight end premium league. Obviously, that super flex tag is incredibly important for this trade. Let's look at it without the quarterbacks coming into play first, because I think that's a fun starter for this. So if it's just Deebo, Elijah Moore, and the 205 versus the 106 and the third, what side do you take in that?
I think I would take the 106 and the third. I mean, Elijah Moore doesn't do much for me. Debo's great. The 205 is okay, but it's a mid-second round pick, so you're just kind of at that point shooting your shot. So yeah, give me the 106 side, although it's not terrible.
And obviously with some hindsight context here, last August, a whole year ago, there were still some thoughts that maybe Elijah Moore would take on a bigger role with the Browns. Maybe he could become that Will Fuller for Deshaun Watson in that offense. Obviously, that didn't happen, but I think there was still hopes that it could happen last year. So, you know, with that little bit of context factored in, I think it's a completely reasonable trade. Really, you're just looking at packaging Deebo in the 205 for the 106. I can see a world where both sides of that absolutely win. So I don't think that was a bad trade at all. And to be plastered at a wedding and doing that, I mean, kudos to both parties on that one. Hopefully it didn't take too long and take away from the festivities. But toss in the CJ Stroud and Will Levis of it all. Can we both agree, as I think we would, that now that's definitely, obviously in hindsight, the side to be on? Is that fair?
110,000%.
It's a lot of percentage points. I didn't know that they went up that high with percentage points. But yeah, I think, and again, last year, nobody knew CJ Stroud was going to do what CJ Stroud did. Even the most ardent CJ Stroud truthers, I don't think, expected that rookie season. So definitely got in there kind of low, kind of shocked in a super flex that he was at the 106. But I guess that does make sense because Bryce Young was still being hyped up more. And I think he was going ahead of Stroud in those leagues. Levis, we're not going to talk about him later. At least I didn't see. I did look at the show sheet now. And I am a little disappointed about who we have to talk about later, but we're not going to talk about Will Levis. I almost thought about putting Will Levis on my list, though. He didn't quite make the cut. What do you think about him just before we move away from this? Any hopes for him with kind of a revamped group there in Tennessee?
I do, only because I have Levis on a rebuilding team right now as one of my quarterbacks. I got him super cheap in a trade last year in the middle of the season. Caught some flack for it in the trade, in the chat, obviously. But I think with what they're doing this offseason, I think we've talked about this when we did the AFC South division. I think they really want to see what they got. They didn't have a lot of weapons around him last year. Obviously, the wide receiver Treylon Burks hasn't worked out yet. It could, but I mean, we're going into year 3 here, so I doubt that's going to be a thing. So I think they really want to know if they've got their quarterback of the future, even if he's not a superstar, but at least an average quarterback, you know, for real life football. Like they want to know if they have their franchise guy that they can rely on. So they're giving them weapons this year. You got Chig, who's been there. They brought in DeAndre Hopkins. They brought in Calvin Ridley. I mean, they gave him weapons. They've got the running game still there. Pass catchers out of the backfield with Pollard and Spears both. So I'm a little bit higher on Levis than I think a lot of people are, because I think they're going to let him open it up this year and really see what they've got with him. So I think that's great. And I am, like I said, higher on Levis, I think, than the vast majority of people.
I like that. I would say he's got the floor of Derek Carr and the ceiling of Kirk Cousins. I don't think there's a wide range. I think it's respectable. I don't think we're going to be looking at, a superstar here, but I do think for what you can trade for him, it's a pretty solid get,
And I mean, if he spends his career as a high to mid end quarterback 2 for fantasy purposes, you're Kirk Cousins of the world, kind of flirting with that QB1, maybe gets into QB1 season here or there, but kind of at that fringe. That's worth its weight in gold. Like those guys are hard to trade for. So I mean,
super flex,
especially in a super flex league, as your second quarterback, I think you could do a lot worse.
Yep. 1,000% agree on that. 100,000,000% agree with you on that one. That was fun. I'm glad we got to revisit the drunk trades here.
Yeah, that was a good one to start off with. I love how he just thought he did bad and then boom, just came right back and
psych,
got even better. That's right. That's right. So yeah, as I said at the top of the show here, we are talking undervalued dynasty players that we feel like are undervalued, hence the name. Jake, do you want to start us off this evening?
Yeah, that was 2 on the nose. We need to come up with some real creative wordplay to describe these guys next time. But yeah, they are undervalued, and I think it's a little bit ridiculous how undervalued some of these guys are. And going through our list, as I now have calibrated, we have to talk about one of your guys here eventually. I do think it's funny the way that we approach this. I think we did it in 2 different ways. I think one of us skews a little bit younger in terms of who the undervalued guys are. One of us skews a little bit older in terms of who the undervalued guys are. And I'm very glad to see that because I do think sometimes the old guys get completely dismissed. So we're going to give them their due in Dynasty tonight. But is it okay if we start off with one young guy to kick us off? Will that be fine?
I told you, start us off. You're kicking us off this evening. So you start wherever your heart wants you to start, Jake.
My heart wants to start in Green Bay, damn it. And why wouldn't it? As a longtime Packer fan, I've been waiting for the day that Christian Watson breaks out and stays broken out. However, his hamstrings have had different ideas for him the last couple of seasons. We've only gotten to see these little flashes of Christian Watson so far. And in the 2 seasons that we've gotten those flashes, I think it's very hard to just look at the snaps that he puts on tape and think anything other than this guy's got a big ceiling. You might not love everything about him. You might not think he's an elite level wide receiver, but I don't think you can look at the plays that he makes and at least put his floor at, I hate to keep throwing this name back out there, but like Will Fuller. Like at least he's got prime Will Fuller energy, Christian Watson. But again, it's just impossible to diagnose that without him being on the field for a consistent length of time. Obviously, we've talked a lot about it this offseason. He's trying to get his hamstring issue resolved. Him and his teammate Eric Stokes have been spending the NFL's grant money, in fact, to get this thing figured out. If he does, I think he has an absolute chance at least being the Packers wide receiver 1, which I think will translate into being, a top 15 potential wide receiver asset. Because if you just look through his healthy games, Christian Watson's been a pretty much a stud. When you start him and he's healthy at the start of the game and he's healthy at the end of the game, he's almost winning you weeks more often than not. So I will take that level of upside. I know we've seen the other crew there. Jaden Reed flashed last year. Romeo Doubs has come on in spurts. Even Dontavian Wicks, people are calling a sleeper here. But if all of them are if all of them are healthy and on the field at the same time, Christian Watson to me has much more upside than anybody else. Are you nervous? I mean, obviously we're all nervous about his hamstrings. Are you nervous about what he looks like if his hamstrings are fully healed though? Or do you just feel like, yep, he's ready to go if that's the case?
Well, I think he could be ready to go, and he probably could be one of the best values in drafts this year if he stays healthy. Because currently I was just looking at Fantasy Pros, and he's wide receiver 42. His teammate, Jaden Reed, as he said, was going as wide receiver 30. So getting that discount on him, and yeah, he could easily be the wide receiver 1 on the team. Like you said, it's just because he hasn't been able to stay on the field and be healthy. But when we have seen him, he's flashed with multiple quarterbacks now. He did it with Aaron Rodgers his rookie year. He did it last year with Jordan Love when he was healthy. So it's not like we can go back and say, oh, it's because, he was one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite targets and we didn't see it with Jordan. No, we saw him do it with multiple quarterbacks. So it's not an issue of who can throw him the ball. He's obviously very talented because they do throw him the ball when he's on the field. So yeah, I think this guy could be he could be that league winner and steal of drafts this year. I really think that is his range of outcomes.
I love it. One quick stat before I move away from him, from our friend Sam Wallace, fellow Wisconsinite. We wanted to see what it looked like with all these guys on the field at once. Again, there wasn't a long time where that happened, but last year, round weeks 5 through 13, that's about as good as it got for all these guys being out there together. And Watson was right behind Dobbs in terms of route participation. He led the crew in targets by a pretty decent chunk. He was leading the team in PPR points per game. It's just the injury stuff. And some guys just have bad luck. You know what I mean? Remember Matt Stafford? Remember when we talked about Stafford being injury prone because he couldn't stay on the field the first couple of years? Remember Keenan Allen in his injury prone days? I'm just saying, don't discount a guy because of that.
That's right. Great place to start, Jake. I love that one. Now, as you said, I'm kind of team old guy here. And I'm going to start with Mike Evans. Team old guy. He is going to be 31 here in August. So he's getting up there. He is currently going as wide receiver 33 overall, which is insane considering the output that he's given you. In the last 3 years, he's finished last year, wide receiver 7. Year before that, wide receiver 17. Year before that, wide receiver 9. He has significantly outplayed his value. And I know this year he's kind of dropping because, we are talking Dynasty here. He is getting older. We like to tend to the young kids here when we're playing Dynasty. But if you play in that 2 to 3 year window here, he's got 2 to 3 years of elite play in him. I think he's never been that I'm going to go race down the field speed guy. He's always been the big body, go up, grab the ball, just high jump and moss everybody. That's his game. That's not going to change. We saw Baker being able to throw him the ball last year. He scored a shit ton of touchdowns. I see no reason why this could change over the next couple of years. The Bucs just signed him to an extension. So we know where he's with the Bucs. He's with Baker for the next couple seasons at least. So if you're playing in that 2 to 3 year window and you're looking for a undervalued guy that you could probably get relatively cheap, why not go for a guy in Mike Evans that could be a difference maker on your squad?
So I saw this go down last year in a Dynasty League. Somebody sent a 2nd and a 3rd round pick for Mike Evans. And I remember at the time going, fuck, I didn't know I could get him for that. Like I had that initial visceral reaction. Flash forward another year, same question. Send out a 2nd, send out a 3rd. If you get Mike Evans, are you ecstatic at this point getting him for that?
Oh, I would smash that all day long. I mean, I think I might break my laptop hitting the accept button so hard.
Do you have my only question with Mike Evans? We both love Mike Evans. And I was so excited to be getting him at value in redraft over the last couple of years. Because I don't know, there was waves with Mike Evans, it seems like. Now he's being back up into the third round, at least, I think, in redraft or close to it. So not as much of a discount this year. Do you have any concern, though, that Mike Evans could follow more of the Julio Jones career trajectory rather than, say, the Larry Fitzgerald career trajectory where he extends his run into his 30s? Or is that kind of not a consideration for you with him?
I think that's possible, more of the latter there that we saw with Fitz rather than Julio. Julio was the stretch the field kind of guy. Like I said, that's not Mike Evans. Like he is just that jump ball, big bodied guy. Like unless he somehow forgets how to jump, which I suppose the legs get a little old, it could happen where he loses some of that jump to him. But no, I don't see that happening.
Dude, I was like 28 trying to hop a fence one time, and it had been like 6 years since I'd tried it. And I was like, wow, who put fucking weights in my shoes? I'm just saying, I'm not a professional athlete, so I don't think it's a completely fair analogy, but it does happen. I do want to call out Joel Worth real quick in the chat, though. Says Christian Watson, wide receiver, 1 season and coming. Will accept no argument. I don't think either of us are necessarily going to give you much of an argument on that. Frozen Gaming in the chat, though. Very interesting question here. So I do want to make sure this is a Dynasty themed episode after all. Frozen Gaming is in a tough 12-team 2-keeper league. They have Chase, I'm guessing that's Jamar Chase, not Chase Brown, and Derrick Henry, and the first pick. I'm assuming first overall pick. Let me know if that's wrong. Frozen Gaming. Best available is Saquon and Marvin Harrison Jr. Should I take Saquon and win now, or play the long game and go with Marv Harrison Jr.? Dustin, anything jump off the page initially for you on that question?
If you're playing in a 2-keeper league, I would probably go Harrison for this one. Since you're keeping Henry this year, and we've talked about it ad nauseum on the show, like you don't want to bet against Henry, but I mean, if you want to stay young with your 2 keepers and get a good core of wide receivers, you got Chase and Harrison, who we're expecting to be in the top 10 probably, especially long term. So I would take Harrison personally with this. I love Saquon this year. I think he's going to do better than people think. I do think he's going to have a resurgence for touchdowns. I know we talked about it quite a bit with our divisional series, but yeah, give me Harrison on this one. What do you think?
I got to say, I think you can have your cake and eat it here with Marvin Harrison. Just because you take him doesn't mean you're not setting yourself up to win now. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. comes out this year and could very easily be a top 10 wide receiver. He's one of the best wide receiver prospects of the last decade. He's set up very nicely. I love the Kyler and Marv connection. People have been talking a lot lately about like who's your preferred quarterback and wide receiver stack for this season. In terms of value and potential output, I think for me it's Kyler and Marv. So I don't think you're sacrificing anything in taking Harrison in the short term. So we are in consensus there on that one. Love it. Yes. Oh, Joel is in with us as well. Says, are we sure Marvin isn't the win now piece? Again, tend to agree with you on that.
True
Joel.
Story. True story. Okay, Jake.
Echoing our thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, who's next on your list here?
I want to talk about a running back. Look, you talked about Saquon Barkley in that particular question. Let's see for a not contender what you can do for Dynasty with running backs. It's always difficult trying to gauge the value of a running back in Dynasty. If you're anything like me, tend to play on a 2 to 3 year window. But let's say hypothetically, you're not set up to win now. You don't want to go after cheap running backs that are veterans that can fill in those gaps, which is my approach if I am a contender. But if you're a rebuilder like I am in a couple of my leagues, I think Jalen Wright is very much worth your time. Jalen Wright, rookie running back that was added to the Miami Dolphins. I said it at the time. I say it now. I don't know that there was a better player and team fit combo that came out of this year's draft than Jalen Wright in Miami. We've already seen what Mike McDaniel and company does with the running backs that they have there, and Raheem Mostert and Devin Achane. You obviously last year, great call again with Devin Achane being one of your drinking buddies. I love Devin Achane. We have both acknowledged that maybe he's not the most durable guy, and maybe that is a concern that could last throughout his career. Raheem Mostert is 32 years old. And I know he doesn't have as much tread on the tires as some other 32-year-old running backs, but he's still a 32-year-old running back. So I don't think we should be planning on Mostert being the key for the long haul. I don't think the Dolphins are planning that. I think that's why they drafted Jalen Wright this year. And the guy looks like an absolute goddamn beast. I know some people might be burned by like Jeff Wilson. You know, he's been hyped up. Kind of the third guy in the pecking order in Miami the last couple of years as this great handcuff. I mean, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I'm the first to chastise myself for bad calls, but I don't think I was ever in on Jeff Wilson. I never saw anything special about Jeff Wilson. Jalen Wright, I think, is going to take over Raheem Mostert's job by the end of this year. So even if you're not planning on winning a championship this year, if you're rebuilding, get him on your team now while he's very cheap, exceedingly cheap. And if you want to flip him at the season's end when he does take over, as I suspect that he will, then you can at least get a payday that way, or just keep him on your team until next year when he probably helps you win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I think he's one that you definitely need to go after now, because I think that he could be one of those players that pops off in the preseason, especially because they're probably not going to play Achane and Mostert too much. So he's probably going to get a fair amount of run here in the preseason. All it's going to take is that one run where he just busts one wide open, runs it in for a touchdown, and then all of a sudden he's going to be like worth a second round pick. So yeah, get in while the getting's good at this point. Before training camp starts. So he's one of those guys you need to attack right now and get on your roster, because I don't think that this value is going to last for too much longer.
Absolutely agree. It's going to be all over the Twitter sphere with the training camp highlights. All right, who's next on your list here you want to get after?
Oh, let's go with someone who's probably going to be one of my guys this year, one of my drinking buddies, and that's Deontay Johnson. I've been talking him up all off season as a value. I can't talk enough about him. He is wide receiver 41 overall. He's still relatively young. He's only 27, so he's still got age on his side. Yes, he's coming off a couple of disappointing seasons with Pittsburgh. But look at the trash quarterbacks they had there. You had Kenny Pickett. The offense was awful. You had Matt Canada running that offense. It was just a big poo-poo dumpster fire there in Pittsburgh. So you can't blame Deontay Johnson because of their scheme and what they were doing. Fast forward to this year. He gets traded to Carolina. He is a young quarterback with high draft capital. And you remember Bryce Young went, what, second overall?
I think so. Yeah.
First overall?
That's
anyway,
high.
Super high draft capital. So the Panthers are obviously invested in him and want him to succeed. We saw what Bryce Young did last year with Adam Thielen, who is 34 years old, obviously tailed off as the season went on because he's not a young man anymore. I see those types of numbers getting transferred right over to Deontay Johnson, who was a PPR machine on a very bad Pittsburgh team. And he's going to continue doing that, but in a higher volume offense. They've got other pieces around him to help take away some of that coverage. They got what should be an upgraded running game there as well. So I don't understand why Deontay Johnson is going so low. I get Carolina's not a sexy team. There's going to be definite bumps in the road, but I mean, it was just a few years ago where he was a top 10 wide receiver, and he was the darling of the ball. He was the dynasty darling, and my, how he has fallen, and I don't understand that because the talent is still there. It was just a terrible situation.
Yeah, I think Deontay Johnson is currently suffering from what I'm going to call Jarvis Landry syndrome of like, look, we know what he is. He's a PPR guy. He operates best out of the slot. It's not going to always be flashy the way that he's not Jamar Chase. He's not Justin Jefferson. That's fine. That's okay. Deontay Johnson, as you said, what if he's just even an upgrade of Adam Thielen from last year, who was wide receiver 6 through, I don't know, week 6, week 7 last year before, the age caught up with him, as you mentioned. So, yeah, it just seems obvious to me. Would you, at this stage, let's say, because looking at the value of guys who are going around him, it really is, it's upsetting a little bit to look at some of these names who are here. So if you had to choose between Deontay Johnson in Dynasty or Chris Godwin, would it be Deontay Johnson pretty easily for you?
Yes.
Me too.
I wouldn't say easily. I would say super easy, but yeah, definitely go Johnson.
I think, yeah, absolutely would be. Terry McLaurin is going multiple spots above him. Deontay or Terry in Dynasty?
Deontay.
Yep, 1,000%.
I admit, I am. He's going to be my drinking buddy this year. Like he is one of my guys. I am planting my flag on. Go ahead.
Let's make it really interesting then. One more, just for Dynasty. One more. Okay. I'm going to go way further up the list to where I still think it's weird to me. Xavier Worthy, rookie for the Kansas City Chiefs, or Deontay Johnson in Dynasty.
Give me Deontay.
4-year age gap. Same.
Yeah, give me Deontay.
So
I don't understand. And in what world does he? I mean, other than barring injury, of course. In what world is he going to finish outside low end wide receiver 2?
I don't know, because much smarter people than you and I have talked about, like Bryce Young just needed one guy on that team last year who could actually separate from defenses. That's basically what Deontay Johnson is known for. So, yeah, I'm all in. I just want to take the minute to say, look, man, I got to the show sheet first, and I left you Deontay Johnson. Don't say I never did anything nice for you. That is my gift to you tonight on this episode.
I almost had a heart attack there for a second when you said you got to the show sheet, and I was like, oh no, you ruined my life.
No. I left it for you. All right, let's get it back onto the young side. Now, I will admit, I think this guy's probably divisive at this stage in the game. Jermaine Burton, rookie wide receiver. Again, I'm going with the young guys thus far. And Jermaine Burton, drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals this year, fell down the NFL's draft board. He's a little bit older as a prospect, but he really fell because of off-the-field concerns and just attitude stuff. Nothing to do with the talent that's on the field. Obviously, that stuff does have to play into your factors, into your considerations in Dynasty. It's just what your threshold is for that and what the coach's threshold is for that as well, by the way. And with Jermaine Burton, it does seem like they drafted, to me, their succession plan for T. Higgins. T. Higgins, we've heard about the last 2 straight off seasons, not very happy with his contract, wanting to get a long-term thing worked out. They haven't done it. Doesn't mean that they won't do it necessarily, but the signs are there that T. Higgins could very well be done at the end of 2024, if not even a little bit sooner than that. We've seen Cincinnati operate with 3 wide receivers who were all at least useful in fantasy. Tyler Boyd being the third guy. He wasn't out here winning you weeks, but he was certainly usable in a flex spot when it was necessary for him. I would say Jermaine Burton is a more well-rounded type of player than Tyler Boyd. It doesn't seem like he would just have to be the slot guy. Could be burning on the outside as well. In fact, that seems to be more of his deal. Another stat from Sam Wallace, by the way. Got to throw it out to him. Last season, over half of his receiving yards in college came on pass attempts that were 20-plus yards downfield. So it's not like he's just going to be stuck in one spot doing this. If T. Higgins gets hurt, he can absolutely be the other guy in 2 wide receiver sets paired along with Jamar Chase, but he will hopefully also see a lot of work immediately in 3 wide receiver sets, just like Tyler Boyd was. I waver off and on this year about how much I choose to believe in Mike Gesicki being out there as a tight end / wide receiver hybrid. Maybe he elbows out Jermaine Burton just a little bit here this first year. But I really think the moment that we see him in game action, his dynasty price tag is going to go up by a round of rookie picks. Like right now, you could probably get him for a third and maybe a little floater action on top of that. I think in 8 weeks, it's going to have to be a second rounder, if not a little bit more. So I'm all in on Jermaine Burton. Any thoughts about him?
Yeah, I like that call, Jake. He's another one of those guys where you look at some of the players going around him, like just above him, and it's just like I don't understand. I would much rather have him than some of these other guys. So yeah, I think get on him while the value is good. Just like I said with your other guy, Jalen Wright. Like get on him while you can now. You know he's going to end up getting quite a bit of playing time in the preseason. And again, all it's going to take is one of those miraculous one-handed grabs to set him off, and his value is going to spike. So, and he's not going to be undervalued. He'll probably be overvalued at that point. So yeah, go get these guys that, you know, maybe you have to wait a year for them to actually be consistent fantasy producers for you. As you were saying, T. Higgins, most likely his last year with the team. If Cincinnati wanted to extend him, they probably would have done that, knowing what the franchise tag number is. They probably would have signed him to a longer extension to lower that cap number. They didn't do it. They obviously like what they've got with Jermaine Burton, or think that he could be a good replacement. So grab him now while you can. Maybe you have to sit a year, but it'll probably be worth it in the long run here. Next summer at this time, you'll be saying, God, I'm glad I listened to Jake, and I'm glad I went and traded for him.
Look, just because that might be the first time you've ever said that or thought that to yourself doesn't mean it isn't accurate this time. So I will take that. Who do you want to move towards next time? Now we're getting down. This is just Russian roulette now. We're working through these names on your side. We eventually have to talk about this albatross, but I'll leave it up to you.
Oh, they're both in my book here, but we're going to go with Amari Cooper next. I want to talk about on the wrong side of 30, but again, and he is going outside the top 36 wide receivers. He's still got a number of years left in him. We saw when, well, both Deshaun Watson and Joe Flacco last year, they both loved him. Elijah Moore, not a thing. I had hopes that a new scenery would help Elijah Moore, but it didn't. Njoku's there, but that's fine. Cooper is still the number one option on this team. And he's produced as a wide receiver 2 for the last couple seasons. I mean, he was just wide receiver 10 2 years ago, wide receiver 20 last year. Like, the fact that he's going outside the top 36 is crazy. And I'm curious to see, I was reading stats before we got going here, and I forget who it was. So I apologize for not naming you, but it was with Deshaun Watson. He was in like the 23 to 25% target share rate when Watson was playing. So he's getting the ball, and Watson was targeting him. If they have that connection this year, and to get a guy that's going to see that amount of target share, Give me that value all day long. Again, playing in a 2 to 3 year window, Amari Cooper, he's going to play at a pretty high level for the next couple of seasons. I don't see him dropping off necessarily. So I think he's a guy you could go get, can help your squad for the next couple of years, and you're not going to have to pay a ton for him.
Not at all. You could get basically what the Browns gave away to get him to the Cowboys in real NFL terms, which was like a 5th round pick. The equivalency, I mean, you probably don't. Do you give up more than a second? I don't think anybody's going to be demanding more than a 2nd round pick in Dynasty for Amari Cooper, are they, based on what we're seeing?
I wouldn't think so, but if I had to throw a 3rd on there to make it happen, I wouldn't have a problem with that. 3rds, I don't really care about all that much. So if I had to throw a 3rd on there to sweeten the pot to get it done, sure, I wouldn't have an issue with that, but I think you could get it done for just 1 second.
Any hesitation about Jerry Jeudy coming in here and sneaking anything away from Amari Cooper? I mean, I'm not.
No.
But I'm curious if you are. Okay.
No, I'm not either. Because we kept hoping he was going to be a thing in Denver, and maybe it just wasn't the right fit or the right situation. But no, he doesn't scare me coming over here to Cleveland.
Well, and Amari Cooper came out and said, hey, it's basically a contract year for him this year. So he's playing like he wants that additional contract. That typically lends itself to a little bit more squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing in terms of target share as well. So very interesting. Really interesting turn of your lifespan, just to see you come all the way back around to be on Amari Cooper all of a sudden. Really something to behold. I just want to put that out there.
I think this is probably the 3rd time I've come around full circle to be back on Amari Cooper over the years. Let's be honest.
So many
he has been one of those guys. I get on the roller coaster, I get off, and I get back on, and right now I'm back on for the ride. Let's do it.
He's your chosen Anderson, man. We all have our guys. We all have the guys. We get off the ride. We get back on the ride. It is what it is. I can't fault you for that at all. I do like that. If I was a contender wide receiver needy team, I would absolutely send out some trades for Amari. If you're not a contender, this is the only guy on my list that's not young. But you can obviously tell where my brain set is because I'm still focusing on more of a rebuild type of thing. That probably says something about my level of confidence in Dynasty right now. But TJ Hawkinson, we know this guy is going to miss some time. It's almost a given that he's going to miss at least a couple of weeks. Might even land on PUP here to start the season and miss a handful of weeks before he ultimately gets back. It was a later season injury that he suffered.
I wouldn't be... Sorry, Jake. I wouldn't be surprised if he misses like half the season, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah. It's totally possible. And I'm baking this into his quote unquote risk for redraft. So for redraft, I'm out on TJ Hawkinson unless we get some other news flowing in before we're actually set to draft that says, oh no, he's only going to miss a handful of weeks. Even then, I probably won't draft him, but he'll be on my mind for waivers after a couple of weeks. So TJ Hawkinson in 2024, sure, stay away. But in Dynasty, people are treating TJ Hawkinson like he's dead all of a sudden, and I don't get it. I think the argument is, well, he lost Kirk Cousins. So what's he supposed to do now? I don't know. Continue being a high-level tight end like he's been the majority of his career. He's 27 years old. Him losing half of a season does not relegate him to the trash heap. But people are just like, he's so far down, he's now tight end 9 in Dynasty rankings. How? Why? Why? I understand there's some hypier is not a word, but that's okay. Flashier guys that are coming on the horizon, right? You've got your Dalton Kincaids and your Brock Bowers, and I understand it all. But TJ Hawkinson has done nothing but produce for you for fantasy when he's been out there. Just looking at his history here over the last few seasons, I know this is a lot with Kirk Cousins, but 2020, he was the tight end 5. 2021 only played 12 games, was still the tight end 16 overall. 2022, he was the tight end 2. 2023, he was the tight end 4. JJ McCarthy might not be great his rookie season. And I've expressed my concerns about Justin Jefferson for 2024 because of that. It's Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tight end. He's 27. He's going to be playing for another 6-7 years here. Just go trade for this man. If you're not contending this year and if you don't care, or hell, even if you are contending but already have your primary tight end slot locked up, still trade for TJ Hawkinson so that when he comes back, you now have 2 great tight ends on your roster. I just think people are getting carried away with the injury thing here. Am I missing something with him?
No, it floors me too, because I really like TJ Hawkinson. I think he is a great target here, Jake. This is probably your best call of the evening here, because all he's done is when he's been healthy as produced. And what have we said is great for a young quarterback? Having a tight end, having that safety valve until he, the game kind of slows down for him. And he has time to be able to make all of his reads, even though you're just going to be throwing to Justin Jefferson the whole time. But yeah, I just don't get it. I don't get it. We know what that Vikings offense has traditionally looked like. They have Aaron Jones in the backfield, but it's not like Aaron Jones is a guy that, can get 300 touches in a season. He's just not that guy. So they are going to be pass heavy like they have been. And when TJ Hawkinson comes back, he's going to resume getting his target share that we saw and we have seen over his career. So I mean, yeah, this is of all the guys you listed, Jake, and probably of all the guys I listed, this is like the number one target to go after.
I'll take it. I'll take it, sir. We've got to talk about this other guy now.
We do. And just to show how professional I can be and how I can put aside my personal biases on players here, I am going to talk about one Joseph Mixon and why he is undervalued for Dynasty. All right. Now, Joseph Mixon, and I'm going to continue to call him Joseph because why not? He is currently going as the RB18 off the board. And I know he just switched teams. He's 27 years old. He's starting to get up there in age a little bit, starting to reach that quote unquote cliff for running backs. And yeah, he's not flashy. He's a slogger. He's a grinder. I know the argument. He gets all of his fantasy points either A, because of high volume, he's just grinding out the yards, or B, he has those weeks, those 50-point weeks that skew his season end totals way off the charts. But the fact remains, over the last 3 seasons, he has finished as the RB10 or better every single season for the last 3 years. And you can argue that the offense he's going to in Houston is just as prolific as the offense that he left in Cincinnati. Sorry. So I don't see where there's a downside here with Mixon. You can't tell me that Pierce is going to be getting touches from him or anybody else in that backfield for any reason. So I think he is going to be the workhorse. I think it's by far and away going to be a workhorse. And I think getting him at that running back 18, again, working in a 2 to 3 year window here, he's a guy that can help you win a championship. He's a guy that you can just plug and play every single week. It's not going to be flashy, although you could have those boom weeks. So you get that week where he scores, 3 touchdowns and has 150 yards rushing. Well, hey, but otherwise he's got a fairly safe floor. And I think he's a guy that he really can help you win a championship. No comment.
I can't disagree with it all. It's just it's Joey Mixon. It's Joe Regard Mixon that we're talking about here.
I know.
Here and like it.
I'm not a big fan of it either, but like I said, I mean,
right.
when I'm looking at players that are undervalued, like you get a guy that's been in the top 10 and he's going as a low end RB2. Like I just don't understand that. Like that just doesn't make any sense for me. So that's why I had to call him out here this week. Nothing. That's it. You're just done. You're not going to say anything, Jake. Oh, and I lost Jake even. He decided to let himself out of the show. Oh, let's hope he gets back on here before we close out, because that was the last player we were talking about this evening. But I suppose I can start to get us out of the show. And if Jake comes back on here, we can let him say his words. Oh, is this Jake here? There he is. I thought you just left the show because you were so upset at having to talk about Joe Mixon. You're just like, screw this. I'm ending the show early. Let Dustin finish it on his own. But do you have thoughts on this?
I really didn't think about it. That was definitely, I think my internet was doing me a favor, frankly, by kicking me out of that. No, I get what you're saying. It's just Joe Regard Mixon is never going to be on my list. The only one real worry that I have, not like just bullshit us with our biases, but our real worry is, he's going to the Texans. The thing that he does the best is still catch a pass. Like that's still what he's the best at, is catching passes out of the backfield. I think more than the other stuff right now. And he's got a lot of target competition in Houston. So I don't know. We'll just have to see. Hopefully he can, obviously ascend Dalton Schultz in the pecking order there. Hopefully ascend at least one of the wide receivers in the pecking order, and then he could be fine. It's always going to be a struggle for me to find something nice to say about Joe Mixon, though.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm sorry we had to end the show on such a lousy note there for us here, Jake. But any final thoughts before we sign off for the evening?
I give you so many opportunities. 4 different opportunities you had to not end with Joe Mixon, and you chose violence instead. So, no, I will just say, as we're nearing the actual NFL season start, this is definitely your time. Dustin said it multiple times already, but this is your time to go out and start making some trades. So if you agree with literally any of the stuff we said about any of the players now is your time to go out and acquire them. Do not wait. Do you agree with that? Am I still on a super big lag? I feel like I'm still on a super big lag. Joe Mixon
I
has
think I was a
ruined
little bit
this
laggy too.
podcast
It's
for the
fine.
last time.
Well, that tracks. So I think we will end it there, Jake. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks to everybody in the chat. If you have those trade questions, any sort of lineup questions here, as we're getting into redraft season here, any sort of questions regarding your drafts, that's what we're here for. We're here to help. Come join us live. You can pop your question into the chat every single week. We'll answer it live on the air right as you are in the show, so you get your answer immediately. No waiting for DMs for anyone to respond. Although if you prefer that way, you can hit us up. You can hit up my partner at Jake Trowbridge. You can find me at FF Dusty Dog. You can find the podcast at Drinking Fantasy. Slide your DM in any one of us here, and we will answer your question. Give us a rate and review wherever you find your podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. You'll see us live. You can join us every single week. It's a lot of fun in here. And I think that's all I have to say, Jake. One last thing. We'll see you next week. Keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.